Have you ever let fear stop you from doing something that you've always wanted to do, like possibly learning how to swim? And what if that fear that's holding you back in the water is fear that's holding you back in your life? Today's conversation is about more than just getting into the water. It's about facing fears, finding the freedom, and learning to trust yourself again. Welcome to Let's Get Real, the podcast where we dive deep into stories of reinvention, resilience, and real transformation. I'm your host, Glenda Kroll, life strategist and reinvention coach, helping women and individuals rediscover their confidence and power at any stage in life. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Cori Myka. She is the founder of the Calm Within Adult Swim program. With over 25 years of experience, Cori specializing in helping adults overcome their fear of water through a powerful combination of mindset, body awareness, and swimming techniques. Her mission is simple. It's to help people move from fear to flow in the water and in life. Let's welcome Cori. Hello, Cori, and thank you so much for joining us today on Let's Get Real. I'm excited to speak on this subject, which is more than just going and floating and swimming in the water, and I love it.
Nice.
So welcome here to Let's Get Real.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here today. As we said when we first got on, I accidentally put my Canada earrings on today. It was serendipitous to have this conversation today.
It's perfect. And even though I'm coming to you from Canada, Toronto, it doesn't matter where you are in the world or where you are in your life. And that's the whole thing. You know, we got to realize that we're all kind of basically the same, inside and out. And it's the one thing, if anything else that holds us back in our life, it's the fears that we live through. And those fears challenge us so often. So let's begin. As you know, I want to find out, Cori, what inspired you to dedicate your career to helping adults overcome their fear of water?
Yeah, absolutely. So swimming is something that was very innate, and I was always called to swimming as a very young person. So it's an area that I was in all through my youth and college and that sort of thing. And then I was teaching swimming lessons. So I was the general swim teacher out there doing it. And that was fine. But when I would teach an adult, in the typical way, teaching them front crawl, all the things you're supposed to teach them. And they'd go across the pool and I'd say, well, how was it? And they would have this deer in the headlights look and say, I have no idea. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am doing something wrong here. They're doing all the things I'm telling them to do. It looks like swimming. If somebody walked by, they'd be like, oh, there's some people swimming in the pool. But to the swimmer, they didn't feel like a swimmer. It didn't match. The outside of what they were doing didn't match their internal experience of it. And this made me very curious. This was a very interesting piece. And that's really where I started to dive in and, literally, figuratively, to become curious and to start to understand how can I unpack this and help people actually get what they want. It's not that they just want to swim across a pool. They want to feel safe. They want to feel in control. They want to feel calm. Like, okay, how do I have that in somebody's life?
So was there an actual defining moment when that aha moment hit you?
Well, I met somebody who at a swim conference who was talking about the idea of introducing mindfulness with the practice of learning to swim. And so that was really when I heard her speak to that, I thought, there's a missing element there. And that sent me down a different path than on the traditional path of how do you tell people how to move their arms and legs and kick better and move faster and, technique. So I got out of the world of technique and into the world of mindset, into the world, which is now called life coaching. I don't think it was really called that at the time, but into this sort of more energetic side of ways of being, psychology, those kinds of things. So I thought that's where I need to be looking, not in the physical sphere. I need to be looking in the mental sphere.
Well, yeah, because mindfulness touches us in every part of our life, in everything we look at, do, and the way, how we perceive things. Because we look at things, everybody looks at things very differently. Everyone's perception is very different.
Absolutely.
And it's a whole different venue than, thinking of how they look at being able to, like your question, to know how to, whether it's easy, it's hard, it's all how they perceive things to happen with them.
Yeah, a very simple one that a lot of our new swimmers have is they have a lot of thoughts about what other people think about them as swimmers, right? Oh, the other people think I'm thrashing around, or they think I'm doing this, or, they're wondering why I'm here and when I don't know what I'm doing. The truth is, for the most part, everybody's thinking about themselves, right? And we kind of know this intellectually, but that's not our emotional experience, right? We project our greatest worries, on other people. And then that ends up how they act and interact in that space, like they don't belong there and that they are uncomfortable in that space. And it really starts with that whole mental side of things.
And you find that if somebody has that feeling of worrying about what others are thinking about them, it's happening in every area of their life. It's not just when they're in the pool, when they're going out, or what they look like, how other people are, even how they talk, how they're being perceived from other people. So it's happening in the pool as it's happening outside. So when you can work with someone on that other level, that's a whole different transition.
Absolutely. And this is the biggest reason why I really love what I do, because it's an opportunity to step out of your day-to-day life and to make a transformation in a different zone, that you have perhaps less preconceived thoughts about it, right? Or there's less energy going into it than your relationship with your spouse or your boss, or that sort of thing that you're inundated with all the time, in and out. It's a way that kind of step out of it, do something different, and practice these things, these skills, these mental skills that, yes, they go over and can support our day-to-day life as well.
So many adults carry this fear about water, but rarely you'll ever hear people talk about it. What do you think this fear? Why do you think this fear is so common?
Well, it is very common. I'm glad you used the word common, because when studies are done, when anonymous studies, when you don't have to share it out loud, it's
Yeah.
about half the adult population either doesn't know how to swim, is afraid in deep water or oceans. And so it's about half of the adult population. So there is a lot. I think the big reason, it makes sense for people to be afraid of it, in terms of, if you don't know what to do in it, people do die. It's a reality. And it is a very different atmosphere, right? I mean, quite literally, because you're in the water and you have new forces on your body. You've got this thing called buoyancy that's interacting with your body. And so it's, a little bit like going to outer space. It's a completely different place. And it's the only activity that we do, that most people do, where for some portion of it, you're not breathing. And that touches to the very core, very, very core place. And so it makes sense when people feel fear. You do actually want to feel fear if you can't breathe, right? It's very normal. But we get, our nervous system gets overstimulated with that fear ahead of time, right? And so we need to learn how to be able to work with that in a way that's useful for us, and not just flood flooding our nervous system.
Right. And what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about learning to swim later in life?
Well, one big misconception is that in order to be safe in deep water, I have to know how to tread, which is, if people don't know what treading water is, it's when you're vertical in the water and your head is out of the water. That is a huge misconception. Treading water is actually something that comes out of being safe in deep water. It comes out of having a calm confidence in your body and understanding how your body and the water works together. So people kind of put this this notion that when I tread water, then I will feel safe, but they can't really get there because to really be able to tread water, you have to feel and know and be safe. And so it becomes like a hamster wheel. You're chasing your own tail there.
Well, so, right. So if somebody can start to understand, or first of all, I guess what it starts with is it's not, like they're not going to have the confidence. So the confidence has to start with trusting the instructor first so that they can build the trust within themselves. Is that correct?
That's useful. But I like to switch that narrative right away as soon as we can to start to build the idea that it's really about learning to trust yourself.
I get it, but when I start to work with a client at times and they don't have the trust and the confidence within themselves, I will say that I will give them that confidence and the trust. They can use me until they build up that trust or confidence.
This is true that they do. I call it borrow confidence.
Yes.
They borrow it from me. They borrow it from me in that I've had years of experience to know there's nothing wrong with them. They have what it takes to learn to swim. It's within them. There is a process we can go through, right? So there is that piece of it. The piece that I like to give back to them is this piece that says, well, you're the one who decided to go find an expert to help you along the road, right? That's the place we start with the trust in yourself. It's not trust in yourself to like jump in the deep end and be able to tread water. It's just this trust that, oh, I actually do look out for myself. I do put things in place. I am a curious person, right? These kinds of things that I like to help people start to craft that very early in the narrative of what is it right now that you're doing to be trustworthy with your own learning journey.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I want to tell viewers that if you're watching this and there's at all hitting some chords in you that's saying, that's me, like I'm scared to go swimming or to go over my head or, of being in oceans or lakes or so forth, pay attention because, what is being done here, what Cori is good is bringing adults in. So we're talking now about the mindset and fear transition. And so you've built the calm adult swimming around the idea of finding calm through the fear.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share how that mindset plays with the role in helping someone shift from that panic to peace in the water?
Yeah, absolutely. So it first starts by recognizing how we are feeling right now. And we delve into two different kinds of feel. You have your feel as emotion. So somebody's sitting next to the pool. I mean, you could say next to anything, next to my boss that I'm going to ask for a raise for, or next to my spouse that I need to have a conversation with, right? So you're sitting next to this, event, getting into the pool. And it's noticing, how do I feel now? And oftentimes we feel very anxious and nothing actually has happened yet. So it's really sort of getting and being able to identify, how am I feeling as emotion, but then also how am I feeling as body reaction, right? So when I'm anxious, there's a bodily reaction that happens. And so, because sometimes for people, they're not very familiar with touching into how they feel, or I don't want to talk about how I feel, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of understanding there's lots of different information around feeling. There's bodily reactions, and I actually said two, there's three, because the third one is sensations. We have just the feel of sensations. So folks who have had trauma around the water, swimming lessons or something like that, they might walk out onto a pool deck and they feel anxious as emotion. Their body reaction is tense. And we can notice the sensation of, oh, the smell of the chlorine or the sound of the building, right? Of the noises that are happening. This is what's maybe triggering that anxious, because we're going to a past place where something didn't go well.
Right.
And so giving people a chance to really even start there, it starts right there. Like, okay, we don't have to go anywhere yet. We can kind of gather ourselves in and take some breaths and allow for these reactions to pass through us and come to calm before we even get into the water.
Do you check that out before you're actually, even when you're first meeting up with the person, or when somebody is coming to you for the first time? Do you ask these type of questions?
Absolutely. Yeah. We never start in the water. We always start on the pool deck, or we start online. We have lots of online programming and online courses, and a lot of our students do that to prepare themselves, right? It helps them mentally to prepare themselves, to kind of know what's coming and to do some of this mindset work ahead of time. But we're always doing it if we're meeting with somebody in person, then we're doing it before we get into the water with them as well. Because we don't want to just shove our way into it. If that had worked, they would have known how to swim already. It would have worked in kind of traditional swimming lessons, if just pushing your way through is going to work.
Well, a lot of people depending on what generation, obviously, but like a lot of people of my generation didn't usually just take swimming lessons. It came later. Like my kids are phenomenal swimmers, because as little children they were taking swimming lessons, and as babies they were put in pools, so they learned growing up because they were around water so much, especially in summers. So it was, for me, important. But in my time, it wasn't as important. A lot of the kids didn't go unless they were in camps. So it was a different sense. So that's why I always think of, there's a lot of adults that never really learned how to swim. And at times, if you're out in waters or pool, and if something, God forbid, happens, it's really important to be able to keep yourself afloat and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and this is, you touched on a really great point here in terms of that the adults don't know how to swim. And there's kind of two different paths that I see that people take. And I say they're both very loving paths that parents take. And so you displayed one of them, which was you made sure your kids learned how to swim. And that's one loving path that parents take. Another loving path that they take is they keep them away or have them be afraid. Because if you never go in, you're never going to drown.
It's true.
And I think, and there are people who say, oh, I wish my parents would have made me gone to swimming lessons. But I like to hold those parents in a loving space still.
Yeah.
And say, I mean, it is a way to keep people safe by staying away. You miss out on a joy of life. There's a yearning there. And people do end up getting in the water because we are so innately attracted to it. And then, of course, we have generational trauma there. Well, people do have bad outcomes.
So it's really, I love the idea, though, is that starting the people before they go into the pool, of dealing with the mindset of how they have to conquer this. It's not just the fact of getting into the water. It's a fact. And is it not true that if somebody is feeling the fear in one area of their life, there is very good chance that this could be showing up in other areas of their life.
Absolutely. I mean, we all have areas in our life that we fear or feel negative or have a lot of negative self-talk around.
Which, yeah.
That's all part of it. A lot of our students are fearful, but a lot of them just don't know how to swim. So they don't necessarily have overwhelming fear from trauma or something like that. But as adults, we learn differently than children do. Our brains are different than children's brains. And so much of the learning curriculum, learning models out there are based on how we teach children, of just like exposure to it. And but don't take care of that the adult brain is doing all of this analyzing and criticizing and judgment and pulling from the past and thinking about the future, all these things that really get in the way of being in the present of a creative, open learning space, which is what one really needs to learn something new, be it swimming or something at your job or relationships or whatever it is. So yeah, it's how we deal with fear, how we deal with learning in one area will show up in other areas as well.
Which ends up stopping people from having a part in life that they can actually enjoy. And it holds, fear holds us from experiencing life.
Absolutely.
Whatever area.
Yeah. I mean, I know for myself, I think about how many times with my spouse, I have done the same thing that my students have done around what they think the lifeguards are thinking, right? How many times I'm acting on what I think he's thinking when, we haven't actually had a conversation. But yeah, I'm all up and reacting. And that's what plays out in the relationship is my own internal narrative, more so than the actual coming together in the relationship very frequently.
Yeah, and you learn that the lifeguard's not even thinking about being at the pool that day. He's off to a lot of land and thinking about something not even close to this area, not even making judgments on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is experiencing some trauma about even getting into the water or figuring, I come across people a lot of time figuring that they can't do something. They've already talked themselves into that. I can't do that. And how do you get past that point? Because, they're not even allowing the consideration of maybe it's possible. Instead of they're already in the can't stage and before they even begin. How do you transform that type of mindset?
Yeah, oftentimes what I see in folks is we are looking at somebody who's an expert at doing something, or they're good at doing something. Maybe they're not even an expert, but it's within their realm. So, they're looking at their friends or family who can swim. And we discount all of the tiny steps that were necessary to get to that place. And so we get into this negative, I can't kind of place because we're really thinking about, I have to go from where I am to step 1,000.
Yeah.
But we think it's step number 2. We had no idea that it was step 1,000, right? So it's helping people break things down into tiny, tiny steps, not to placate them or anything, but to really have the validity of, you know what, we actually do need to be okay with what it feels like to have water in your mouth. If you expect to be able to swim across the pool and you're not okay with the sensation of water in your mouth and understand if it's going to choke you or not, or how you can breathe if water goes in your mouth, how are you supposed to do all your arms and legs doing a bunch of different things if this one little thing is holding your energy, your worry, your concern? So we're breaking things down into tiny, tiny steps that has people go, oh, right, I didn't even really realize I was worried about that, but I am. And now, or I was, and now I'm not. I feel better. I'm now open to the possibility that I could continue to take small steps and keep feeling better and keep feeling better.
Yeah, that's so important. I never even thought about, like it's so natural. You think when you go swimming, you get water in your mouth, you get it in your eyes. It's just part of it all. But,
Mm-hmm.
we don't even think, we take for granted for those who can get into the water and do things. It's just like even to get onto a podcast and talk. We take certain things for granted because it's what we do. And, we don't even think of some of these things. So even those type of things to be talking about ahead of time is it's brilliant. It's that it's so important to break down into such smaller steps. Same like watching a baby walk. They'll keep on doing it till they can actually get it through. But we can do little things to help them move forward. So, do you have a powerful story that you can share with us where you've had a student have stayed with you and started from maybe not being able to get into the water or feeling fear, and then that it maybe came to a point where it really touched your heart?
Yeah. I always, one of my favorite stories, because it's such, I go back to this idea of feel, this like kinesthetic. I can still feel the best hug I have ever gotten standing on the back of the boat in Hawaii. After Rhonda realized this life dream, right? Which was to be able to swim off of the back of a boat in Hawaii and see the fish and be there.
Wow.
And it's just so amazing. And she started with, just amazing woman. She was a school principal, just a very loving woman who is around learners all the time, very powerful, very smart, very capable person, right? To be leading schools, and had a career as a principal. But her fear in water really came when she was a teenager. She was working at like a summer camp, and as it is, the camp counselors, after the kids are in bed, they're all hanging out together by the lake, and they get into the water. And she didn't really know how to swim, but it was okay because it was the swim area, and she thought it's fine. We're just kind of walking around, waiting around. But what happens with open water is the bottom is variable, and
Yeah.
suddenly the bottom wasn't there, and it dropped out. And she has this literal like life flashing before my eyes kind of experience, and having her friends have to rescue her and pull her out. And so it was kind of that trauma of that experience, but also at that age, the embarrassment, right? You're being with your peers, and this like having it be so chaotic and having this big thing happen in front of your peers, right? It was very monumental for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she made sure, like you did, made sure her kids learned to swim, but she didn't touch it till after she was retired, right? She had to it haunted her in the back of her head for so long, that there were others who could swim, and made sure other people could learn to swim, and her grandchildren, and that whole thing. And then it was the day for her. And so, yeah, we did step by step, getting in. And she's very much one who displayed that, like bringing that past trauma forward.
Yeah.
And so we really had to take our time. And it's so amazing to be able, this is this borrowing confidence where, I know for folks who really take their time in the beginning and really allow themselves to go slowly, and can let go of, all right, it's okay that I'm just going to do one little part at a time. And the more generous they are with themselves with this, it pays off in dividends later, because they really get the deep transformation of the mental side. So yeah, she's one of my top favorite students.
I love that. And one of our viewers is watching to saying that it happened to him at 8 years that his brother saved his life. And to even still to today, he has trouble swimming in lakes because of that. And I know, like, I've been brought up at a lake, so the lake, because you never know when the bottom will change. And, well, you learn the characteristics of some lakes, but still, whether what's around, or, you know, if you're not familiar of how fast the lake can go from shallow to all of a sudden there's no bottoms right around you. So it can be scaring to some others. But that brings me up to the next question I wanted to ask is, I work with a lot of times, a lot of my clients are older women. And, there's one thing, I talk about reinvention because that's part of what that I work with. But the idea is, that people ever say to you, I'm too old to learn how to swim now? Because I hear it all the time. Well, I'm too old. And, like, I believe when the fact that you're still breathing is the time to keep learning, never stop.
I absolutely agree with that sentiment. And the truth is, by the time they come to me, they've kind of gotten through that a little bit when they're signing up for something. But it is funny to me how often people tell me how old they are. Like it makes some sort of, like there's some sort of line in the sand. And people will tell me anywhere from like, in their mid-20s, I was like reviewing in my head there really quickly, I'm 25. And then you have the people who are like, I'm 85. And they all say it with the same like vehemence of like, I've passed this line marker age, which means something. And I'm always like, great. It's the perfect time. This is your time. It was meant to be now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like when is the best time to do anything? Well, it should have been 20 years ago. However, now is the perfect time because it's always perfect timing.
It's always a perfect time. And, I don't even like to say that maybe it should have been 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you weren't in the place to learn in the way you needed to learn. That's how I usually look at it. That you needed something and you needed this time and space and learning, and you were doing something in that time. I like to make sure to give people credit for whatever it was that they were working on. Those little pebbles is probably what led them to me or to you, right? That we need those experiences and to lead us to the place that we are. And now is the time for this change, whatever that change is that you want to bring in.
I agree with you. Everything in life is a teacher to us all. So it's really wonderful for anybody to, anywhere where they feel something within them that they feel they want to improve or to build themselves, is the perfect timing for it. And I believe that you're never too old to learn anything. It doesn't matter what it is.
Absolutely. And my students who are conventionally older, even though the 25-year-old thinks they're old, I just love those students. I love the students who have come to a place of saying, okay, I'm just gonna just see what happens. And there's some grace and generosity with themselves oftentimes, which is really wonderful to see and inspiring.
It's so wonderful to listen to you talk so positively about it and so strongly, because we need to step over, and this is one of my greatest things that I believe so heartedly in, is we need to just sometimes step out of that fear zone and even do it anyways. You like, the whole thing of life is we're all scared of something. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a fear, and even people that do things, but to step further beyond, even no matter how afraid you are, to still do it anyways, because there's something in you that kind of wants it, and it's that desire to feel that want and fulfill that within you.
I love that idea of being allowed to go for things because you want to. You don't have to justify it, right? If you're not harming yourself or somebody else,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then Yeah, we do. That is a powerful transformation in and of itself, to be able to be, as an adult person, to sit back and say, well, what do I want? Just because I want it, and to
Yeah.
let myself go for it. Not because somebody expects it from me or it ticks a box, but because I've allowed space to be quiet, to hear my desires. I mean, I need quiet space. Maybe some other people can do it in raucous, louder, different ways. That's okay. But yeah, that we're allowed to want things. And I think that, I mean, I'm a woman, so I want to say probably especially for women, but I don't have the lived experience of a man. But I think so much we're told that we're caretakers, and we're told that we're, providers, and these roles, and men have roles too that they're given. But how much of our lives is crafted around others?
Well, I think also, sorry for interrupting, but the male role of always having to be strong,
Mhm.
always having to be the strong one, having, like can't show your emotions. And therefore, a lot of men are not allowing themselves to be honest with themselves that maybe there is some fear. And we have to, a lot of times just at least accept the fact that we have it, but walk past it, get through it, and even though you do have the fear.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of that when you were saying that, have the fear and do it anyways.
Anyways,
And
yeah,
for some people, they are more adrenaline seekers. And so they're very good at like doing it anyways.
yeah,
But
okay.
maybe for that person, it's more about feeling some emotional feelings, being able to sit in quietness, to be able to to not have to be in an adrenaline mode all the time, right? So there's different ways that uh, moving through fear shows up for different people.
Right. And there's also the factor, like, so really, for especially of our audience, when we desire things for ourselves, a lot of times we give to our kids everything what they want, but we have this yearning within ourselves of things. And it's not just the swimming aspect, it's anything in through our lives. We deserve to do things because we want it, just because who we are. We always, like I said, we give to our kids, we give to our family, we're always giving to others. And one thing we learned, like it took me years to learn this, that I could give to myself and it was okay. Like I didn't have to feel guilty because I was going to do something for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that, this comes along with, if you want to build something for yourself, do something for yourself, just stop worrying about getting somebody else's permission. I'm giving you permission. Go and do what you want to do, because it is such a strong building thing for yourself to be able to do something, and then you're proud. Look what I did for myself. And that in feeling especially at that time, when you can be in the water where your kids are, or you can show your family later on if you care to, but feeling more confident within yourself is really the greatest feeling that you can possibly get.
Absolutely. I had just, every morning I sit down and look at my day, as many people do, kind of have my to-dos and whatnot. And I stopped myself and I said, you know, what would just be really fun? What would be fun for me today? And then I wrote those things down. It turns out like half the things on that list were kind of the like perfunctory things that I needed to get done that day, or, would have been on the should list. But just me simply rephrasing it and having it. And this is what we say to our students all the time. If it sounds like fun, we can put our face in the water. We can do this or that. And that small, back to this like mindset, right? This small shift of just me having a moment to say, gosh, what would be fun? And then my bike ride came up on top of the list. It wasn't exercise. It was, I just want to go on a bike ride. Happens to tick the box of exercise. Great, bonus. But just that way of being, of saying, yeah, I get to take a moment and see what I want and go for it.
I love that. And it's, yeah, what do you want today?
Mm-hmm.
So, I want my Wednesdays to always come around because I always learn something so much more powerful and feelings that, it really makes my day. And today has made my day. I love listening to what a different, way of thinking through life, of something that you just take for granted, learning to swim. And yet so many adults today don't know. And they hold on to that fear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Hold on to it. And then if they go to engage with it, we bring it, like you say, you bring in the way that you do other things in your life. And if the way you're doing other things in life is serving you well in terms of this fun and curiosity and uplifting yourself, it's probably going to work in a traditional learn to swim lesson. But if the way that you're doing a lot of things in life have you feel smaller and bad and pushed and hurried and not really confident in it, it's going to show up in that way too when you go to learn to swim. So we can have a new way.
Oh, it's such an important aspect of having a new way of it. It's the same way of how you look at life. Do you look at your everyday life as boring and uneventful, or do you look at your life that there's challenges and it can be exciting, and and what can you see or happen today? Even a smile to somebody else could change everything for that person, and that person might come back to you and say, geez, you just made my day. And doesn't it do that for us? So, just think of this. So if you're sitting back here and you're watching this and you're wondering to yourself, this sounds like me. I feel stuck and maybe uncertain, but this conversation inspires me. Well, I want you to learn it's time to possibly take that first step. The first step that there's confidence and there's some courage in that, because it's never too late to learn. And it's never too late to grow or to rise. And I want to remind you all. And if anybody is thinking of the possibility of going, Cori, you said that you had online courses. Could you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I love to tell people you can start learning to swim without even having to put a swimsuit on. Because maybe that's the part you don't really want to do.
Any woman, yeah.
I don't have to tackle that quite yet. Oh, good. I could learn at home by myself for a bit. I mean, at some point, yes, we are going to engage with the water and find a swimming costume that feels comfortable to you. But yeah, so we have online classes where we go through these steps. What you really need, you just start online by just engaging with it and learning from it. I mean, it can even be as simple as all of our free content on our YouTube page on Calm Within Adult Swim. But then we also have a membership side where we lay things out bit by bit and step by step. So if you have a local lifeguarded pool that you can use, pay your entry fee, then you can do this online class, this step by step. I have several students, who do this, and it always, I put this together in 2019, and because we have people who fly in for our classes and do retreats, and I just really wanted to make it accessible to everybody. Because not everybody can fly into a swimming retreat or, fly to us in Seattle. So that's why I put it online, but I was very unsure. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, but it is amazing to me when I get the feedback from students, or they ask a question, or they turn in the homework forms that I have in there that they can turn in. They're asking and saying the same thing as our in-person students do, which I just find really remarkable. And I think it's really a testament to, we have what it takes within ourselves to be able to do this. there was somebody who was the first swimmer and made it up and discovered it. And it's just useful to have a guide who gives you permission to take care of your mind and to give you the small steps that you could come up with on your own, but it might take you a little bit longer to figure them out on your own.
I like that. It's so important to, at least it gives people something to start at. And instead of having to go to the pool and, as you mentioned, you're already starting, oh my God, I got to go and buy a bathing suit. I got to start going at that. It's a great way to kind of sort of dip your toe in the water, let's say, but not really in the water yet.
Yeah. I mean, the first lesson I tell people, go to the pool, don't take a swimsuit, just go and understand the environment, understand the place, go at different times to figure out, all right, this time has 1,000,000 kids in it. And I don't know that I could focus at it, right? Or just to understand how moving through, I was just in Eastern Europe and I was going to pools there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so lost on how to go through the changing rooms. They're so different. They were so different than the pools here. So even me as an expert swimmer, like I was a little, oh, okay, let me slow down and figure this out, right? So I needed that space to figure out that new place as well. So give yourself time to even do that step without the pressure of swim performance.
Yeah, I always said when people are starting, even going to the gym, go to the gym and, the first time, even go for 10 minutes. Because when you leave, you feel good about the fact that you've actually gone there. And you feel more intense that you want to go back. When you stay and you overwork your body, where your body's sore and everything, the next day usually it's 2 or 3 days later, you don't want to go back because that's when your body is hurting because you've overdone it. Yeah. So it's just having that bit of connection to the pool and area. It's a great idea.
Absolutely. And let me add on to that too, if I may, because it's an option for people to feel good after going for 10 minutes. But this is where the mindset piece is so vitally important, that we have to watch the saboteur voice, the judgment voice that's going to want to come in and say, but you really should have. And so we need to prepare ourselves ahead of time to, have your own back. Like, I am going to go for 10 minutes and I'm going to celebrate myself that I did that. I'm not going to celebrate myself because I then, did 30 more minutes and now I'm sore 3 days later, right? But to actually celebrate that you made this commitment to yourself, you showed up, you did the thing, right? And really love on yourself for it, because it's very normal that the saboteur voice is going to come in because it really wants you to just like stay the same and stay small. And so we have to like counter that with, okay, when I go for that 10 minutes or I go to the pool without taking my swimsuit, I'm going to literally mentally reward myself. Yes, there I am, whatever it is to get that dopamine hit of, I am doing my thing. Look at me. It's a really important piece of it.
I love that. And I believe 100% that you should be celebrating everything you do all the time. Even when you lose, you should be celebrating if you learned something from it. It's not a loss. Nothing is ever a loss in our lives. We learn from everything we do. So, just try to pick out something that you've gotten out of it, because you've always gotten something out of something, right?
Absolutely.
So, what a great thing to remind me of, and to remind us all, what we need to take time and celebrate ourselves every day of the days of the years, no matter what, anyways, because you are who you are, and we should be grateful that we are and what we have, what we do have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking about the person that you mentioned that wrote in earlier and shared that he'd had a similar incident in the lake. I mean, it's worth celebrating. Like, gosh, he's listening to this, right? And he's like opening his mind to something new. That's worth celebrating. Yeah. Showing up and listening to your show every Wednesday.
it's always worth a celebration. Like I said, that, part of my show is for, something that might hit us and say, if they can do it, so can I. And I believe that in everything. Sometimes we just need that little bit of inspiration and encouragement of somebody that's been on that ledge, wondering, do I go this way or do I go that way? So instead of pulling back, the whole idea is to move forward, even if it's tiny little steps, because I'm a baby step person. I believe after a little while, a little bit of the baby steps end up into huge growth spurts. So we can do little steps at a time. And I believe that even if you want to swim, just go to your calmwithinswim.com and start looking at that. Follow Cori, and see, what she is up to. I believe you have a YouTube channel. What's your channel's name?
So Calm Within Adult Swim is our YouTube channel, and then adultswimlesson.com is our website.
Perfect. Thanks for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
And so remember, there is no bad time. Every day is the right day. It's just about building yourself along your journey and helping yourself to move forward in life. And is there one thing that you could tell our audience that, one really helpful insight that, maybe that can help them if they're sort of teeter-tottering on the line of thinking maybe they should or shouldn't, to take that next step forward?
What do we need to take that next step forward? What my mind goes to is what we were talking about before, is allowing ourselves to be in what we desire, and that we don't have to know the end thing to get started. And it really is just about taking one tiny step at a time. Earlier you had made the analogy to when we learn to walk, when babies learn to walk, when we all learn to walk, that they just do kind of one step at a time. But the other thing that they do is they're not in judgment of themselves, of how many steps they did today, or that I took 3 steps and I plopped down on my bottom and I needed to rest. They just let themselves rest. When somebody celebrates with them, they celebrate, right? That they're just really allowing for the process to unfold. But they do the process because they're curious, right? They're just curious about life and the world around them. And so as much as we can allow ourselves to go ahead and be curious about life and the world around you and take one tiny step, that's all it takes to start that snowball going. And maybe you'll become, some big swimmer, or maybe you'll have some amazing swimming experiences and that will feel good. And then you'll want to do something else. You don't have to know what the whole map is going to be, but just taking it one bit.
I also think it's also just something where, where down the road you could be somewhere and you could just be enjoying yourself just a little bit more of having that, or maybe there's family involved and you being with kids or grandchildren or things like that. As we can grow in different ways, we just allow ourselves to be able to be enjoying more experiences. And I think that's the key to a good life, is that you're opened up to building up more experiences once you step into that next sector of life.
Absolutely. And this keeps coming to mind to me, another student of mine who, when she came and learned to swim, and she was just amazed and dazzled that, oh my gosh, I actually learned to swim. And then she asked me, she said, do I have to tell my husband? And I said, well, no. Why? And she's like, well, because when we go on family vacations, he's the swimmer. So he takes the kids and does the swimming thing with the kids. And that's my time to read my book and to be on my own. And I said, it's totally fine. You can keep pretending you don't know how to swim if you want to, and just have it be for you. And get that little time reading your book. You have my permission to do what you feels good.
Well, that's the whole story right there and then, just do everything that you should be doing for yourself anyways. And, whether you want to share it with others, that's your prerogative if you want to keep it to yourself. But there's nothing greater than when you have pride within for yourself. And that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. She now has the option to swim with the kids if she wants to.
Exactly. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us today. It was such a lovely conversation on so many different levels, because we weren't just talking about swimming. We were talking about stepping through the fear, stepping through life, building your confidence, building you, because that's really what it's about. So if today's episode spoke to you, don't forget to like us and share us and subscribe to Let's Get Real on YouTube. But this hopefully will be one of your favorite podcasts. But always connect up with us as well, because, the whole idea of this is we're here so that you don't have to go through life on your own. Through so many challenges of my life, I lived through so much on my own. And that's why I went into coaching. And that's why I do a lot of things. And now the people who I do have interviews with have also done a lot of things that we are talking about. And the whole idea is that we have certain tools that you can use to help you to live a better life, a stronger life, and most importantly, a life where you can be more proud within yourself. So reach out to us. Our contact information is below the videos. And next time, just remember, you know what? Don't allow those stories that you're telling yourself of what you can't do. Instead, let's change the dialogue and tell yourself so many things of what you can do. That's really what matters in our life, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Cori, for joining me. What a great show today was. You're just wonderful. If anybody wants to contact you, you want to give your information again?
Sure. So adultswimlesson.com is where you can find our classes and retreats and our next Hawaii trip, or you can come get some free content on Calm Within Adult Swim. That's our social media handle. So Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, all the places. But thank you so much for having me today. This was a delightful time. And I love the weaving in and out between the swimming and life, because it's all one.
It's all one together. Really is. Thank you so much. And everybody, go have yourself a beautiful day and do something today that you wouldn't do yesterday, because make it a new day for yourself. Thank you.